Hi everyone, I'm Carrie Jacquet, VP of Marketing at SenSage, and I'm here today with Joe Gottlieb, our President and CEO, for another 5 Minutes with Joe. And today we're going to be talking about the 2012 predictions that we blogged about, and I wanted to just get some more color on a few of the, thoughts that Joe had on these. And so let's start with what the predictions were back in January when we talked about them.
Well, we used a bit of a theme of the end of the Mayan calendar. So December 21st, 2012 is apparently the end of the world because the Mayan calendar ends on that date, and many believe that that signifies the end of the world. And we thought about that a bit and thought about how maybe it's just the end of the world as we know it. Maybe it's the end of the security world as we know it.
Everyone's singing right now, but okay.
Yeah, it's fun. But maybe it's an epiphany, maybe it's a transformation that we can leverage. And so the first prediction that we made about 2012 was that this would become an era of enlightenment. This would be the year of enlightenment in security measurement. After the year of the breach in 2011, it's high time that we have a year of enlightenment and self-awareness, etc. So we really think that the most self-aware organizations, the most proactive organizations are going to be thinking about their real security state and where it needs to go. And that's going to be an opening and an awakening of the ability to actually take action and be very specific about what they're doing in security. And that sounds so fundamental, but it's crazy how still that is not the underlying practice that drives security behaviors today. We're still very reactive, we're still dealing with limitations of technology that would enable us to be self-aware, and we're not confronting the data and the realities that we need to confront to be effective. So, prediction number one, let's look at 2012 as a year of enlightenment going forward. Prediction number two, this can be the year of Six Sigma security. Now, taken to the extreme, we may see black belts and brown belts and green belts running around. But taken in general, what this is all about is really understanding defects and inconsistencies of process and remediating those so that we can continuously improve what we're doing. That doesn't sound too hard, right? You can start small. All quality initiatives started small by paying attention to what was going on, measuring, recording, interpreting, and then adjusting to improve, and then continuing that cycle. And again, it's pretty much fundamental and a basic approach that can be taken, but it's crazy how few companies are actually doing it this way. And we believe that data continues to drive the ability to do this more measurement-oriented, more science-driven, more objectively sort of motivated change management in security. So that's a really big one.
And I think a shout out to the folks at Metricon, securitymetrics.org, who are doing some of that, heavy duty thinking around how this...
I love that T-list. I mean, these people are sharing ideas about metrics and theories as well as applications.
Practical, yep.
And so, love that gang, love to tune into those guys. We learn a lot from them. They're going to be getting together at RSA. And so keep an eye out for them. Good work there. Third prediction, digital actuaries. So how does actuarial science apply to security? This is something that, frankly, I think is being done in some spaces, and we've yet to fully recognize how it works. But I think it holds great promise. If you think about actuarial tables, what do they call them? They call them death tables, mortality tables, right? We look at what behaviors in life will accelerate our death. Well, let's think about this in terms of security. And I don't think this is particularly new, but I got to thinking about this and I got excited about it. So if I'm stealing someone's invention, sorry about that. But I really do believe that we can start to use objective data analysis to build security actuarial tables so that we can then encourage our security stakeholders, the divisions that we're protecting, the business units, the executives, the processes,
the
partners,
ecosystem,
the end-to-end value chains.
Yeah.
These are the stakeholders that we can advise using actuarial tables and say, hey, we found in our own environment that the following behaviors result in either breaches or near breaches or loss of data or, you name it. Those things can be correlated, they can be pointed out, they can be reported on, and then shared to advise and encourage better behaviors. The days of just sort of scaring people into change, haven't really produced a lot of results. We have to take the next step beyond FUD into something that is more credible and more based in reality and data. So that's a big one.
And I think a big part of that is, as more and more regulations come on for, managing data breaches, for addressing any of the risks that one faces in an organization, we'll have to base what we report on actual data, and to be very pragmatic about how we do that we've got to take some big steps forward.
I think those regulations are coming. We've talked about them in the past, how the U.S. is even starting to consider some of this legislation. But regardless of when it arrives and how it'll arrive, this is stuff that'll reduce your risk. And I think people collectively know that. They're just looking for ways to break through and commit to this kind of discipline. Fourth prediction, this should be the year. Not going to put my neck out too far on this one, but this should be the year of smart, social, mobile, and cloud. Mobile, social, and cloud are all happening. It's a given. We can't get in the way of it, but we should be there advising our organizations on how we can do it smarter, do it safer, right? By using some of these actuarial tables, by using some of this measurement data to learn about what's working, what's not working, by tapping into some scenarios where cloud can actually be more secure than your own premise implementations. And so really leveraging those where you can, while advising against certain practices that may be more open and more vulnerable. Just that's on the cloud topic. Mobile, watching devices, leveraging encryption, looking at which devices are reporting in versus which are not. Very, very big in healthcare. It's just one example, but it's prevalent across all verticals.
Our partner Cerner has even been working on sort of location-based event management, where if a device is outside of the clinic sphere where it should be, that triggers a potential risk scenario. So there's lots of great things happening around device security.
Arm yourself with data to do what you can to reduce the risk of these things that are just juggernauts and changing the shape of IT, and they're irreversible, but we can advise our stakeholders on how to conduct them more intelligently.
And
lastly,
social, yeah. Huge.
Lastly,
no, social. Let's talk about social, right?
Social. So, again, it's happening.
Social.
People are engaging in the social fabric, a variety of different ones from Facebook on down. And oftentimes we're even doing that as part of our marketing, posture for a corporation. Now everyone has to decide what they let people do personally versus corporate on the infrastructure, but just tuning that in to cope with social fabrics as a necessary evil or a very, very prevalent part of the infrastructure is just something we have to deal with. And so monitoring these things is becoming paramount, right? Because it is increasing and accelerating our exposure to the outside world, which is easily compromised, right? And so we absolutely ought to be monitoring, even if we don't have the perfect prevention technologies in place right now, which we don't, and knowing we can't shut it down, all the more reason to be monitoring and then be doing important exception-based filtering to figure out when you need to advise users against risky behavior, let's say they're being sloppy, when you need to confront users that are engaging in things that are actually malicious.
Build policies around it, yep.
That's right.
And I think there are two things, Joe blogged about before if you haven't read. One is around the whole trust piece of social networks and why it is that, email threats are not as prevalent anymore, because we all understand we don't click on things from people we don't know. But in the social world, we tend to believe that if you're in the group that, loves going to Burning Man with me, there's a good chance you're a great person, right? So I think there is, that trust piece to look out for. And the second is, Joe talks a little bit about the vendors. Facebook, YouTube, they're all doing a great job putting together the elements of the security controls in their solutions and in their services. It's really about the users and the organizations who those users work for to stay on top of it, and they change all the time. So I think it's important to have almost like a backstop of event monitoring and management that allows them to occasionally make mistakes but still keep the solution safe. So. And
as far as end user training goes, we should be treating social as a new frontier where things are suddenly less familiar and more familiar at the same time, right? Like you said, much like we learned how to avoid certain types of emails, even if it looked like it was coming from someone we knew. someone in our directory, right?
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean it was coming from someone that we knew.
Yeah.
We got more cautious. So we have to be cautious in the social fabric because it's easily compromised and it can lead to exposure in a corporate setting.
And there are vendors like DataSift and InfoChimps who are doing great work around that, and we're partnering with them to make it easier for our customers to get that data.
So last prediction. This needs to be the year of graceful degradation, right? And what does that mean? In machine design, graceful degradation is all about making sure that the instrument, let's say an airplane, actually continues to work, albeit less effectively, as things start to fail, right? Because you want to be able to land that plane even though you've got, you know, one engine that's down or one flap that's not working properly. So graceful degradation is all about degrading gracefully, continuously. Same thing has to apply to security. So we're going to get breached. We're going to have little breaches. We're going to have big breaches. We're going to have near breaches. We're going to have partial breaches. All of the above is going to be happening, and it's going to happen to you in some form, in some sequence, at some cadence. The fact of the matter is you have to be prepared for these things to be occurring. You have to be prepared to be scanned and poked and prodded and compromised. And so having the right processes and data in place to deal with a real breach that's big is one practice we have to instrument and build out. Another is knowing when to not put all of your energy into something that may be really small and less important so that you don't miss the bigger issue that might be happening at the same time. There are decoys that are happening out there, all these things. So making sure that your process degrades gracefully will be a good mantra for making sure that your security is effective and ultimately more efficient in coping with the threats that are out there. So that's it. Not the end of the world, we hope. Perhaps the end of the world as we know it, and at least an opportunity to have a bit of an epiphany on how we can improve security utilizing some of these methods.
Perfect. You didn't comment on my glasses, but
I've learned not to comment.
It's just that I was seeing into the future.
Yes,
with these
you
big,
have
thick
these
lenses.
cat
Yeah.
eyes that just have extreme vision.
And just a shout out to Elia for the new style. Anyway, thank you so much, Joe, and thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back again with another 5 Minutes with Joe.